The Declaration Grand Admiral Zexthal of the Vexari Empire stood before the neural transmission array, his 6 iridescent eyes narrowed with anticipation. His exoskeleton gleamed under the pulsing blue lights of the command bridge as he addressed the primitive species that had somehow maintained sovereignty for a full millennium. "People of Earth," he began, mandibles clicking rhythmically with each syllable. "The treaty that has kept peace between our civilizations for 1,000 of your years expires today. The Vexari Imperium now claims your solar system as our rightful territory. Your technological development has stagnated while ours has flourished. Surrender now, and we will permit your species to serve as auxiliaries in our grand fleet. Resist and face extinction. You have 6 hours to respond." With a dismissive gesture, he terminated the transmission. Around him, the bridge officers of the Imperial flagship Inevitable Dominance chittered with amusement. Humans were notoriously fragile creatures after all, bipedal mammals with no natural armor, laughably limited lifespans, and primitive technology. The treaty had been nothing but a gesture of mercy from a previous overly sentimental emperor. "Admiral," his communications officer called, compound eyes widening. "We're receiving an immediate response from Earth." Zexthal clicked in surprise. He had expected panicked deliberations, perhaps diplomatic pleas for mercy. An immediate response suggested either remarkable discipline or foolish haste. "Display it," he commanded. The holographic projection flickered to life, revealing a human female seated at what appeared to be a command center. She wore a simple dark uniform with minimal ornamentation, nothing like the ceremonial battle armor that properly conveyed authority among the Vexari. Her skin was a rich brown, her head adorned with tightly coiled black hair cut short against her scalp. Most disturbing were her eyes, dark, alert, and utterly unafraid. "This is Commander Elena Reyes of Earth United Defense," she said, her voice calm and measured. And then, inexplicably, her lips curved upward in what humans called a smile. She laughed. It wasn't nervous laughter. It wasn't the desperate sound of a creature facing death. It was genuine amusement, as though Zexthal had shared a particularly entertaining joke. "I'm sorry," she said, not sounding sorry at all. "But do you actually think we've been sitting around doing nothing for 1,000 years? Zexthal felt his carapace heat with indignation. "Your insolence changes nothing. Our armada will reach your system within 3 days. We have monitored your development closely. Your most advanced ships barely reach your neighboring planet. You have no defensive capabilities that could possibly—" "You've been monitoring what we wanted you to monitor," Commander Reyes interrupted, still smiling. "The treaty specified that no Vexari ships could approach within 5 light years of our system. We've respected that boundary. Have you?" Zexthal's secondary antennae twitched involuntarily, a sign of discomfort that his officers would surely notice. The truth was that the Vexari had indeed dispatched numerous stealth observation vessels over the centuries, all reporting the same thing: a species slowly expanding to its neighboring planets using primitive chemical rockets, developing rudimentary orbital habitats, and only recently achieving rudimentary fusion power. Nothing remotely threatening to the glorious Vexari Empire. "Your evasion is noted," he said stiffly. "Your answer to our terms?" Commander Reyes leaned forward, her smile fading into something more serious. "Here's our answer. Turn your ships around and go home. Renew the treaty and we'll forget this unfortunate lapse in judgment. Continue your approach, and you'll discover exactly why your ancestors were wise enough to leave us alone in the first place." The bridge erupted in chittering laughter. Zexthal allowed himself to join in, mandibles vibrating with mirth. "Bold words from a species that hasn't left its own star system." "Who said we haven't left our star system?" Reyes replied cryptically. 6 hours was generous of you. We'll give you 12 to reconsider. After that, we will consider your approach an act of war and respond accordingly." "Reyes out," The transmission cut, leaving the bridge in momentary silence. "Absurd!" exclaimed Sub-Commander Vexa Lorath, Zexthal's second-in-command. "They speak as though they possess power comparable to ours. Our smallest scout vessel could obliterate their largest cities." Zexthal's instincts urged caution, but he couldn't show weakness before his crew. "Indeed, their bravado is entertaining but meaningless. Continue the approach. Prepare invasion scenarios." As his officers returned to their duties, Zexthal accessed the historical archives through his neural implant. The original treaty with Earth had been signed under unusual circumstances. The historical record stated simply that Emperor Zexmorath the Wise had determined that Earth was not yet ready for integration, and had established a 1,000-year grace period before the inevitable conquest. What the records didn't explain was why. Why grant such an unprecedented reprieve to a species that had barely achieved spaceflight? The Emperor's personal journals might have contained the answer, but they had been sealed upon his death, accessible only to his direct descendants. And Zexthal, as it happened, was the last living descendant of Emperor Zexmorath the Wise. Her office 300 meters beneath the Olympus Mons military complex on Mars, Commander Elena Reyes terminated the connection and let out a long breath. Around her, the command staff of Earth United Defense remained silent, waiting. "Well," said Admiral Zhang finally. "They took the bait. They have no idea." "Apparently not," Elena agreed, standing to stretch. "Though I expected more hesitation. From them. They're either very confident or very stupid." "Both, possibly," suggested Dr. Okonkwo, their xenobiologist. "The Vexari evolved as hive predators. Their psychological profile suggests they respect only obvious displays of force. Subtlety isn't their strong suit." "That works in our favor," Elena said, walking to the large window that overlooked the vast underground hangar. Below, thousands of engineers and technicians swarmed around what appeared to be a conventional military spacecraft. At least, that's what it would look like to any Vexari spy satellites that might have glimpsed it during construction. What those satellites couldn't detect was that the visible ship was merely a shell, a decoy. The real work happened in the quantum-shielded chambers beyond, where humanity's true capabilities were hidden. "How much do they know about Project Ascension?" Elena asked, still gazing at the decoy ship. Admiral Zhang consulted his neural interface. "Nothing concrete. Our counterintelligence teams have been feeding their spies carefully curated information for centuries. As far as they know, we achieved fusion power 30 years ago and are just beginning to explore quantum computing." Elena smiled grimly. "Not quantum consciousness transference, not the Jupiter shipyards, not the Kuiper Belt defense grid. None of it," confirmed Zhang. "The ancients were right to maintain the deception. 1,000 years ago, when the Vexari ships had first appeared in Earth's solar system, humanity had been genuinely vulnerable. Just beginning to establish colonies, on Mars and Europa, the sudden appearance of an advanced alien armada had thrown governments into panic. When the Vexari demanded Earth's surrender, extinction had seemed certain. But then something unexpected happened. The Vexari Emperor himself had requested a private audience with Earth's leadership. What transpired in that meeting was known to only a handful of people throughout history, passed down through generations of military and scientific leadership. The Emperor had offered a deal, 1,000 years of peace. 1,000 years for humanity to prepare, because something worse than the Vexari was coming. "All division heads, report status," Elena commanded, returning to the conference table. "Defense grid is fully operational," reported General Okafor. "All Sol system installations are at combat readiness. The Jupiter shipyards have deployed the Phantom Fleet," added Admiral Yamamoto. 900 vessels currently in stealth configuration. The Vexari won't detect them until they're right on top of them. The Titan Research Division has completed final testing of the phase shift weaponry," Dr. Singh announced proudly. 17 test targets eliminated successfully. The technology is ready for field deployment. Elena nodded, taking in each report with outward calm despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. Humanity had spent a millennium preparing for this moment, developing in secret while presenting a carefully crafted image of slow technological progress to Vexari observers. "And beyond the solar system?" she asked quietly. Admiral Zhang touched, his temple activating a secure quantum channel. "Proxima Colony reports ready. Alpha Centauri defense platform is operational. The Tau Ceti fleet has begun its return journey and will arrive within 24 hours if needed." The room fell silent. The scope of humanity's secret expansion was known to only a select few. While the Vexari believed humans were confined to their own solar system, the reality was dramatically different. For 800 years, humans had been establishing colonies and military outposts throughout nearby star systems, carefully hidden from Vexari detection. "They genuinely have no idea what they're walking into, do they?" mused Dr. Okonkwo. "No," Elena confirmed. "And that's exactly how we wanted it. The question is, do we reveal everything now, or do we keep some capabilities in reserve?" "The strategic advantage of surprise cannot be overstated," General Okafor argued. "I recommend a measured response. Show them enough to convince them to retreat, but not everything we have." "I agree," said Elena. "Prepare the first-tier response. Package. Let's see how they react to that before we escalate further." As the command staff dispersed to carry out their assignments, Elena turned back to the window, her thoughts drifting to the Vexari admiral. His arrogance reminded her of historical accounts from Earth's own past, powerful empires dismissing primitive opponents, only to face devastating defeats. The Vexari were about to learn what humanity had become in the shadow of their treaty, and they wouldn't be laughing. 3 days later, Grand Admiral Zexthal stood on the bridge of the inevitable dominance as the massive Vexari armada approached the outer boundary of the Sol system. 300 warships, each capable of reducing a planet's surface to slag, moved in perfect formation toward their target. "No sign of defensive preparations," reported his tactical officer. "Long-range scans detect minimal activity around their outer planets. A few small outposts, nothing significant." "As expected," Zexthal said, though something continued to gnaw at his instincts. That human's confidence hadn't seemed like bluster or desperation. She had seemed genuinely unconcerned by his threats. "We are approaching the Kuiper Belt region, Admiral," announced his navigator. "Estimated time to Earth orbit, 13 hours at current velocity." "Excellent. Maintain course and—" "Admiral," interrupted the sensor officer, antennae rigid with alarm. "Energy spike detected. Massive power signature activating throughout." "The Kuiper Belt." "Display it," ordered Zexthal, unease crystallizing into genuine concern. The tactical hologram shifted, showing the diffuse ring of ice and rock that marked the edge of the Sol system. Throughout the belt, thousands of objects were suddenly radiating energy, objects that hadn't registered on their scans moments before. "What are we seeing?" demanded Zexthal. "They appear to be weapons platforms, Admiral," reported the tactical officer, mandibles clicking rapidly in distress. "Thousands of them. They were dormant until now, completely shielded from our sensors." Before Zexthal could respond, a familiar human face appeared on the main view screen. "Grand Admiral," said Commander Elena Reyes calmly, "you're approaching a restricted military zone. As promised, we now consider this an act of war. This is your final warning to withdraw." Zexthal felt the eyes of his officers upon him. To retreat now would mean disgrace, possibly execution upon his return to the Empire, but to proceed blindly against unknown defenses. "Your primitive weapons cannot harm our fleet," he declared, with more confidence than he felt. "We will proceed as planned." Elena sighed, looking genuinely disappointed. "I was afraid you'd say that." "Very well. She made a small gesture to someone off-screen, and suddenly the space around the Vexari fleet lit up with energy signatures. "Target the lead vessel only," Elena instructed someone off-screen. "Minimal force demonstration." Before Zexthal could order evasive maneuvers, a beam of blinding blue-white energy lanced out from the nearest platform. It struck the inevitable dominance with pinpoint precision, bypassing the ship's supposedly impenetrable shields as if they weren't there. Alarms blared across the bridge as systems throughout the enormous warship began shutting down. Not destroyed, merely disabled with surgical precision. "What's happening?" Zexthal demanded as the bridge emergency lighting activated, the main power core having been somehow neutralized. "Admiral," said Commander Reyes, still visible on the emergency backup screens, "we've temporarily disabled your flagship's primary systems. Your life support remains functional, as do basic communications. Consider this a demonstration of restraint on our part." Zexthal stared at the human in disbelief. The technology required to selectively disable systems through active Vexari shields was beyond anything his scientists had thought possible. "How?" he asked simply. "1,000 years is a long time to prepare," she replied, "especially when you know exactly who you're preparing for." Around the inevitable dominance, the rest of the Vexari fleet had moved into defensive positions, weapons charged but holding fire as they awaited orders. "The next demonstration won't be so gentle," continued Reyes. "You have 1 hour to begin withdrawing your forces. After that, we will neutralize your entire fleet. Not destroy. We're not monsters. But we will disable your ships and tow them back to the edge of your territory." The humiliation of such an outcome would be worse than death for a Vexari commander. Zexthal's mind raced, seeking some advantage, some explanation for how the humans had developed such technology in secret. And then suddenly the pieces fell into place. The treaty, the inexplicable 1,000-year reprieve. His ancestor hadn't been showing mercy. He had been buying time. But for what? "Before you make your decision, Admiral," Reyes said as if reading his thoughts, "there's something you should know. Something your ancestor, Emperor Zexmorath, learned 1,000 years ago. The real reason he signed the treaty." Zexthal leaned forward despite himself. "And what might that be, human?" Elena Reyes' expression turned grave. "We're not alone in this galaxy, Admiral. Neither humans nor Vexari. There's something else out there. Something ancient. Something that sees both our species as nothing more than insects to be exterminated." A chill ran through Zexthal's exoskeleton. "You speak without evidence." "Your ancestor saw the evidence," she countered. "That's why he gave us time to prepare. Not just for this moment, but for what comes next." As if on cue, a new set of holographic projections appeared, star charts showing regions far beyond Earth's solar system. Regions where Vexari long-range probes had mysteriously disappeared over the centuries. "We've been out there, Admiral," said Reyes softly. "Far beyond our solar system. We've seen what's coming. And if our species don't stand together, neither of us will survive what happens next." The bridge of the inevitable dominance fell silent as Zexthal stared at the human commander and the terrible possibility her words suggested. "I believe," he said finally, "we have much to discuss, Commander Reyes." The Reckoning. The conference room aboard the Earth United Defense flagship Tenacity hummed with tension. On one side of the polished obsidian table sat Commander Elena Reyes and her senior staff. On the other, Grand Admiral Zexthal and 3 of his highest-ranking officers, the only Vexari who had been permitted to board the human vessel. The Tenacity had appeared seemingly from nowhere, materializing beside the disabled Vexari flagship in a manner that defied the laws of physics as the Vexari understood them. It was smaller than the inevitable dominance, sleek and black, with none of the obvious weapon emplacements that characterized Vexari warships. Yet its very existence, a ship that could apparently phase through space itself, was perhaps the most devastating weapon of all. "Your stealth technology is impressive," Zexthal admitted reluctantly, his mandibles tight against his face in the Vexari expression of controlled distress. "As are your defensive capabilities." Elena nodded acknowledgement of the compliment. "What you've seen represents approximately 15% of our current military technology. The treaty gave us time to focus on development rather than constant defense." "Impossible!" hissed Sub-Commander Vex Lorath. "No species advances so quickly. You must have had outside assistance." Dr. Okonkwo, seated beside Elena, smiled faintly. "On the contrary, necessity is quite the motivator. When Emperor Zex Morath showed our ancestors what was coming, we understood exactly how necessary our advancement would be." "You keep referring to this alleged threat," said Zexthal, his secondary antennae twitching with agitation. "Yet you offer no proof beyond vague references to my ancestors' actions." Elena exchanged glances with Admiral Jang, who gave a subtle nod. The time for full disclosure had arrived. "Computer," she said clearly, "display file Omega-1, authorization. Reyes Prime 7 Delta." The center of the table shimmered as a holographic projection formed above it. It showed a recording so ancient that it had been digitally enhanced and restored countless times over the centuries. In it, a human woman in outdated military dress stood beside a Vexari who could only be Emperor Zex Morath himself. They were examining what appeared to be a fragment of technology, sleek, black, and seemingly absorbing the light around it. "This recording was made 997 years ago," Elena explained. "The human is General Sophia Chen, then commander of Earth's Unified Defense Forces. The object they're examining was found on a derelict ship that drifted into our solar system, a ship that wasn't Vexari, wasn't human, and didn't match any known design parameters." The hologram shifted, showing complex readings and analysis of the mysterious fragment. "The technology was billions of years ahead of either of our species," continued Elena, "self-repairing, self-powered, and containing an information storage system so dense that we're still decoding it to this day. But what we did decode immediately was a warning." The hologram changed again, displaying star charts and trajectories. "These are migration patterns," explained Admiral Zhang, speaking for the first time. "Movements of an ancient species that seems to sweep through the galaxy every 50,000 years or so. They target developing civilizations, harvest them, and then retreat back into dark space." "You expect us to believe this?" scoffed Vex Lorath. "Some mythical ancient threat that conveniently explains your treaty violations?" "We haven't violated the treaty," Elena countered calmly. "It specified that no human military installations could be detected by Vexari sensors within 5 light-years of Vexari space. Our installations weren't detected until we activated them, and they're within our solar system, not yours." Zexthal's primary eyes narrowed. "A clever interpretation." "An accurate one," Elena corrected. "But more importantly, the treaty served its purpose. It gave us time to prepare, not just for your eventual return, but for something far worse." She gestured, and the hologram shifted again, now showing a vast three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Hundreds of points of light indicated human outposts and colonies, spread far beyond the Sol system. "While you thought we were confined to our home system, we were expanding," she explained, "carefully, quietly, always staying beyond your sensor range. We've established colonies in 17 star systems, research outposts in 43 more, and defensive installations throughout the sector." The Vexari officers stared at the display in stunned silence. The scale of human expansion was beyond anything they had imagined possible in a mere millennium. "How?" demanded Zexthal finally. "How did you achieve faster-than-light travel? Our scientists have been working on it for 3,000 years, without success. We took a different approach, said Dr. Singh, the head of the Titan Research Division. Instead of trying to move faster than light, we learned to bend space itself, create temporary wormholes. It's not true FTL, but it serves the same purpose. And your weapons? Asked Zexthal, mandibles clicking with barely contained emotion. The ones that bypassed our shields? Phase shift technology, Dr. Singh explained. Your shields are designed to block matter and energy in conventional states. Our weapons temporarily shift into a quantum state that your shields don't recognize as either. The implications were staggering. The Vexari had always relied on their technological superiority to maintain their empire. The revelation that humans had not only caught up but surpassed them in many areas threatened the very foundation of their society. If what you say about this ancient threat is true, said Zexthal slowly, why reveal all this to us now? Why not simply force us to retreat and continue your preparations in secret? Elena leaned forward, her expression somber. Because we're running out of time. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected unusual energy patterns in the galactic halo, patterns that match the records from that ancient ship fragment. Whatever's out there, it's stirring. We estimate first contact within 5 years, possibly sooner. And you think we could be allies? The word seemed to physically pain the Vexari admiral as he said it. I think we need to be, Elena replied simply. Your empire spans 12 star systems. You have resources we need, manufacturing capabilities, military strength, different ways of thinking about problems that might yield solutions we haven't considered. And in return? Asked Zexthal, diplomatic enough to recognize a negotiation when he heard one. We share our technology, our research, our defensive capabilities. Together, we prepare for what's coming. The conference room fell silent as the Vexari officers communicated silently through their neural networks, a swift exchange of data and opinions invisible to the human observers. Finally, Zexthal spoke. Your proposal has merit. But our empire is not accustomed to equality with other species. Our society is structured around the principle of Vexari supremacy. Then your society will need to evolve, said Elena bluntly. Because the alternative is extinction, not just for humans, but for your people as well. Instead of taking offense, Zexthal surprised her by making a sound she had never heard from a Vexari before. A low, rumbling vibration that her translator identified impossibly as laughter. Now I understand, he said, compound eyes fixed on her. This is why my ancestor gave you 1,000 years. He saw something in your species, a potential, a flexibility of thought that we Vexari have lost over millennia of unchallenged dominance. He gestured to the holographic display of human expansion. We would have conquered. You chose to hide, to wait, to prepare. Different strategies for different species. Perhaps there is wisdom in diversity after all. Elena allowed, herself a small smile. Does this mean you're open to an alliance? It means I will bring your proposal before the Imperial Council, said Zexthal carefully, with my recommendation that it be seriously considered. But be aware, there will be resistance. Many will see this as a human ploy, a deception. Then bring them here, suggested Admiral Zhang. Show them what we've shown you. Better yet, let us take a delegation to the edge of the dark space, where our monitoring stations have detected activity. Let them see the evidence for themselves. Zexthal's antennae twitched thoughtfully. A joint expedition? Interesting. Such a gesture would demonstrate good faith on your part. And on yours, countered Elena. The Vexari admiral tilted his head in acknowledgement. Indeed. Very well. Commander Reyes, we have much to discuss, but it seems we may have the beginnings of an understanding. As the meeting continued, technical experts from both sides began the complex process of sharing information, each carefully revealing capabilities while still maintaining certain secrets. Trust would come slowly, if at all. 3 weeks later, Elena stood on the observation deck of the Tenacity, watching as the joint human-Vexari expedition fleet assembled in orbit around Neptune. 3 Vexari warships, formidable despite what humans now knew of their technological limitations, positioned themselves alongside 5 human vessels of varying designs. Admiral Zhang joined her at the viewport, his weathered face solemn. The Imperial Council has ratified the preliminary alliance treaty. It's not everything we hoped for, but it's a start. And the expedition? She asked. Departing in 6 hours. Zexthal insisted on commanding the Vexari contingent personally. Says he wants to see this ancient threat with his own eyes. Elena nodded. I can't blame him. I'd want the same in his position. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the distant ships maneuvering into formation. It was a historic sight, the first cooperative military venture between humans and Vexari in recorded history. Do you think we did the right thing? Zhang asked suddenly. Revealing so much of our capabilities? Elena considered the question carefully. We revealed what we needed to in order to convince them. There's plenty they still don't know. Like the Jupiter Consciousness Collective, the quantum dimension research? Exactly, she confirmed. Trust is built gradually. They've seen enough to respect us, not enough to threaten us if this alliance fails. Zhang's neural interface pulsed, indicating an incoming message. His eyes unfocused briefly as he reviewed it. Speaking of trust, our deep space monitors just picked up something interesting. Massive energy signature at the edge of the Oort cloud, just beyond where the expedition is heading. Elena frowned. The ancients? No, said Zhang, his expression complex. It's Vexari, a second fleet much larger than the one Zexthal brought. They've been waiting out there, hidden, probably as backup in case the initial invasion failed. Does Zexthal know? Unknown, but I suspect not. This has the hallmarks of Imperial intelligence. They often operate independently of military command. Elena processed this information quickly. Options? We could confront Zexthal or neutralize the hidden fleet as a show of force, or we could pretend we haven't noticed, Elena finished, and see what happens. Zhang nodded. The alliance is fragile. Accusations now could shatter it before it's properly formed. Elena turned back to the viewport, watching the ships prepare for their journey. Alert the defense grid silently. Position our stealth monitors to track every move that hidden fleet makes. But we proceed as planned. And if they attack while our expedition is away? A cold smile crossed Elena's face. Then they'll discover what happens when you threaten Earth while its defenders are watching. Zhang saluted and departed, leaving Elena alone with her thoughts. The Vexari had underestimated humanity once, assuming that 1,000 years of peace meant 1,000 years of stagnation. They had been wrong, catastrophically so. If elements within the Empire chose to make the same mistake again, well, Earth had even more surprises waiting. Her neural interface chirped softly. Commander, came the voice of her communications officer, Admiral Zexthal is requesting permission to come aboard for final expedition planning. Permission granted, she replied, straightening her uniform. Have him escorted to conference, room Alpha, and notify Dr. Okonkwo and Dr. Singh to join us. As she left the observation deck, Elena glanced once more at the assembled fleet. Humanity and Vexari, ancient enemies now reluctant allies, preparing to face something far older and more dangerous than either civilization. The 1,000-year peace had ended not with the extinction of humanity, as the Vexari had planned, but with the beginning of something unprecedented, a partnership between species that had evolved on different worlds, under different suns, with different biologies, and philosophies and histories. Epilogue: The Greater Darkness. 2 months after the formation of the tentative human-Vexari alliance, a sleek exploration vessel hovered at the edge of charted space. The mutual endeavor, as it had been diplomatically named, represented the pinnacle of both species' technologies. Vexari power systems and hull composites merged with human spatial distortion drives and quantum sensors. In the ship's central observatory, Commander Elena Reyes stood beside Grand Admiral Zexthal, both gazing at the holographic representation of what lay before them. The vast emptiness beyond the galaxy's edge, where the stars grew thin and darkness reigned. "We've detected anomalous energy signatures in Sector 12 Beta," reported Lieutenant Commander Kira Sharma, the ship's science officer. "The pattern matches the ancient records with 97% certainty." Zexathal's antennae twitched with a mixture of anticipation and dread. "Magnify." The hologram zoomed in, revealing what appeared to be empty space. But as the ship's quantum sensors pierced the darkness, shapes began to emerge, vast geometric structures, perfectly symmetrical and utterly unnatural, drifting in the void between galaxies. "By the Emperor's carapace," whispered Zex-Lorath, who had reluctantly joined the expedition, as Zexthal's second-in-command. "Those structures! They're enormous!" "Each one approximately the size of Earth's moon," confirmed Sharma. "Material composition unknown. Our sensors can't penetrate their outer layers." Elena studied the readings with practiced calm, though her heart raced. "Are they ships? Stations?" "Both, perhaps," suggested Zexthal. "Arcs of some kind, designed for the long journey between galaxies." "Life signs?" asked Elena. Sharma shook her head. "Nothing we can detect as life, but there are energy patterns that suggest consciousness of a sort, distributed, vast." The observatory fell silent as the implications sank in. Whatever awaited them in the darkness wasn't merely advanced technology, it was something so fundamentally different from organic life that their sensors struggled to categorize it. "They're moving," said Sharma suddenly, her voice tight. "Changing course, accelerating." The hologram updated, showing the massive structures reorienting themselves. Slowly at first, then with increasing velocity, they began to move toward the Milky Way. "They've detected us," said Elena. "Our observations triggered a response." "Impossible," countered Zexa-Lorath. "We're using passive sensors only, and at this distance, they're operating on principles we don't understand." Elena interrupted. "Our very concept of detection might be meaningless to them." Zexthal's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. "How long until they reach the outer rim of our galaxy?" Sharma calculated quickly. "At current acceleration, 4 months, maybe less." "We need to return immediately," said Elena. "Warn both our governments. The timeline has accelerated dramatically." Zexthal nodded in agreement. "Navigator, plot the fastest course back to the rendezvous point." As the crew hastened to carry out their orders, Elena felt a cold certainty settle over her. The ancient threat was real, just as the historical records had warned, and it was awakening far sooner than anyone had anticipated. "We don't have enough time," said Zex-Lorath, giving voice to what everyone was thinking. 4 months is insufficient to prepare proper defenses, even with both our species working together. Then we find more allies," said Elena firmly. Zexthal looked at her sharply. "Explain." "The Vexari Empire has encountered dozens of spacefaring species in its expansion. Yes? Some you conquered, others you subjugated or traded with." "Correct," confirmed Zexthal, "though none approached our level of development. But together? If we formed a coalition, not just humans and Vexari, but all the species of the local cluster?" Zexthal's primary eyes widened slightly. "An unprecedented suggestion, The Empire does not share power with subject species. The Empire might not survive what's coming, Elena countered bluntly. None of us will, separately. But together, pooling our resources, our knowledge, our different evolutionary paths and problem-solving approaches. Before Zexthal could respond, the ship's alarms blared. "Energy surge!" shouted Sharma. One of the structures is... A blinding flash lit up the observatory as something lanced out from the nearest geometric structure. Not a weapon, but a probe of energy, scanning, analyzing. "They're examining us," gasped Sharma, staring at her. "Readings. That energy beam. It's mapping the ship down to the atomic level." The light vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving the observatory in momentary darkness until the ship's systems compensated. "Damage report," ordered Zexthal. "No physical damage," reported the tactical officer, "but our primary database has been accessed, copied. Everything we know about both Vexari and human civilization, they took it all in seconds." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. In a single moment, the ancient beings had learned everything about them, their technologies, their histories, their weaknesses. "Maximum speed," she ordered. "Get us out of here, now." As the Mutual Endeavor engaged its spatial distortion drive, tearing a hole in the fabric of space-time itself, Elena turned to Zexthal, their earlier disagreement forgotten in the face of imminent threat. "We have less time than we thought," she said quietly. "They know us now. They'll adjust their approach accordingly." Zexthal's normally imposing form seemed diminished somehow, the weight of responsibility visibly pressing upon him. "The Empire is not prepared for this. Our society is built on strength, on conquest. The concept of existential threat is foreign to us. Humanity has lived with it for 1,000 years, said Elena. Ever since your ancestor showed us what was coming. That's why we advanced so quickly. Fear is a powerful motivator. And now we must learn what you have learned, mused Zexthal. To put aside pride and embrace cooperation. Not just with humans, Elena reminded him. With everyone, every species, every civilization. This isn't about Vexari or humans anymore. It's about life itself, organic life, against whatever those things represent. As the ship hurtled through the spatial distortion corridor, Elena accessed her neural interface, reviewing the data they had collected. The ancient structures didn't match any known physical principles. They seemed to exist partially in normal space and partially elsewhere, in dimensions humanity had only begun to theorize about. There's something else, she said slowly. Something. In the energy readings that bothers me, Sharma looked up from her station. Commander? These entities, they're not just ancient, they're old, as in potentially older than the galaxy itself. Impossible, said Zexalorath dismissively. No life form could exist for billions of years. Unless it's not life as we understand it, countered Elena. What if these are the remnants of a civilization so ancient they transcended physical form entirely? Uploaded consciousness, perhaps, or something even beyond that, beings of pure energy and information. Zexthal's antennae twitched with interest. The implications are disturbing. If they're that old, they've seen countless species rise and fall. Entire civilizations wiped out. Why haven't we found evidence of them before now? Maybe we have, suggested Elena. Think about it. Both. Our mythologies contain stories of godlike beings, entities of immense power that shaped the destiny of worlds. What if those weren't just stories? Before anyone could respond, the ship shuddered violently, throwing them against the observatory walls. Status report, barked Zexthal, regaining his footing. Spatial distortion field destabilizing, reported the navigator, mandibles clicking frantically. Something's interfering with the drive. That's not possible, said Sharma. Nothing can affect the field once it's established. Nothing we know of, corrected Elena grimly. Emergency protocols. Prepare to drop back to normal space. As the crew scrambled to stabilize the failing drive, Elena and Zexthal exchanged a look of shared understanding. The ancient entities hadn't just scanned their ship, they had analyzed their method of faster-than-light travel and found a way to disrupt it, all within minutes of their first encounter. "They're even more advanced than we feared," said Zexthal, quietly. "Yes," agreed Elena, "but they've also revealed something important. They perceive us as a threat, significant enough to stop us from returning with information." "How is that encouraging?" asked Zex Lorath, who had overheard. "Because," said Elena, her eyes gleaming with sudden insight, "you don't try to stop something unless you're afraid of it. Whatever these beings are, they're not omnipotent. They have limitations, vulnerabilities, and they know we might discover them." The ship lurched again, more violently this time, as the spatial distortion drive failed completely. Emergency systems. Engaged, dropping them back into normal space with enough force to momentarily disable artificial gravity. "Location?" demanded Zexthal as the crew picked themselves up from the floor. "We're still in unexplored space," reported the navigator. "But we've traveled approximately 70% of the distance back to the rendezvous point. The drive overloaded. It'll take days to repair." "Conventional engines?" "Functional, but we'd be looking at months of travel at sublight speeds." Elena activated her emergency quantum communicator, a device so power-intensive it could only be used in dire circumstances. "This has priority clearance for Earth United Defense Command. We need immediate extraction. Sending coordinates now." Zexthal did the same with the Vexari emergency channel. "Imperial Command, this is Grand Admiral Zexthal. The ancient threat is confirmed and imminent. Maximum alert status required." As the two leaders sent their urgent messages into the void, hoping they would reach their respective governments in time, the ship's sensors detected something new, a faint distortion in space, rapidly growing larger. "Contact approaching," reported the tactical officer. "It's massive, and it's coming straight for us." On the main view screen, space itself seemed to bend and warp, as if something was pushing through from another dimension. A shape began to emerge, geometric, perfect, and utterly alien. One of the ancient structures had followed them. "Weapons status?" asked Zexthal, though he already knew the answer. "Online, but unlikely to have any effect given what we've observed of their technology." Elena stepped forward, her mind racing. "Open a communication channel. All frequencies, all formats." "You want to talk to it?" asked Zex Lorath incredulously. "We need time," she explained. "Time for our messages to reach home, time for reinforcements to arrive. And we need information. Anything we can learn about them improves our chances." As the communications officer worked to establish contact, Elena turned to Zexthal. "Whatever happens next," she said quietly, "remember what we've discovered. They can be afraid. That means they can be defeated." The Vexari Admiral's compound eyes fixed on hers, and for the first time since they'd met, Elena saw something new in them. Respect. "Together," he agreed, mandibles clicking once in the Vexari gesture of solemn oath. The view screen flickered as the channel opened, revealing the approaching entity in all its impossible geometry. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, patterns of light began to flow across its surface, complex, hypnotic, somehow meaningful. "It's responding," whispered Sharma. "Those patterns, their language, mathematical, universal." As the crew worked frantically to decode the alien communication, Elena felt a strange sensation, a pressure in her mind, a presence that hadn't been there before. Beside her, Zexthal stiffened, antenna rigid. "You feel it too," she said. It wasn't a question. "They're in our minds," he confirmed. "Somehow, they're in our minds." The pressure increased, becoming almost unbearable. Images flashed through Elena's consciousness, galaxies forming, civilizations rising and falling, an endless cycle of creation and destruction spanning billions of years. And beneath it all, a singular message, not in words, but in pure concept. We are eternal. You are not. This is the natural order. Elena struggled to maintain her sense of self against the overwhelming presence. With tremendous effort, she formed a reply, not in speech but in thought. We disagree. The pressure intensified, becoming painful. More images flooded her mind. Planets burning, species extinct, the methodical harvesting of entire civilizations. This is inevitable. This is necessary. This is mercy. Elena felt her consciousness beginning to fragment under the assault. But before she lost herself completely, she managed one final thought, pushing it outward with all her remaining strength. We'll see about that. And then, mercifully, darkness claimed her.